I'm Dr. Venus Papilota Diaz, a member of the Kaluhi for Asia of WVSU Team for Teacher Education. We are in the Recognition Mechanism 3, which is the implementation of authentic assessment of internationally comparable learning outcomes in degree programs. Specifically, we'll have an overview of authentic assessment, aiming to explain to you how it is understood in Kaluhiya. We have four subtopics in this 5-minute video. First, we'll define authentic assessment, identify its characteristics and give some examples, recognize some of its advantages and some ways of creating authentic assessment. Authentic assessment is based on performance standards, and it truly measures the learning outcomes of the program. Authenticity of an assessment is a continuum. It allows students to demonstrate achievement of learning outcomes in situations as similar as possible to those in which they will need to apply their knowledge and skills in others to negotiate the requirements of a real life setting or context. Authentic assessments are often criterion reference. That is, assessments are designed to measure student performance against a fixed set of predetermined criteria or learning standards. They also encourage use of range of higher order thinking skills. They are process oriented, performance based, and promote active learning and collaboration between the academic and the student as they both determine progress or achieve the learning outcomes. To concretize the ideas presented earlier, we can differentiate the traditional assessment versus the authentic ones. In using authentic assessments, students perform tasks in real or a simulation of real life settings. They use creativity in writing purposely, debate issues, and apply theories and concepts as they carry out experiments, conduct primary research, and interviews. Direct evidence of their performance can be demonstrated through their essays, portfolios, and can be graded by teachers' observations and scoring against learning outcomes and standards. Should we decide to use authentic assessment for our degree programs, we can find out what students know, how students go about the task of doing their work, what students can do, and how well they can perform. And equally important is we know how students feel about their work. We can use a simplest model in creating our authentic assessment. We can first identify the standards, select the authentic task, identify the criteria for the task, and create a rubric. We can also use GRASP's task to create authentic assessment. Here are some frequently asked questions. What can we recognize? What students have learned, the knowledge, skills, and others they can demonstrate after finishing a period of learning. We commonly refer to them as learning outcomes. How can we know what students have actually achieved the intended learning outcomes? We need to give students possibilities to demonstrate achievement of learning outcomes. What about program learning outcomes? Program learning outcomes describe the knowledge, skills, and others students will be able to demonstrate when they leave university and eventually apply them in real life contexts. So, how can we best see if students can use the intended knowledge or skills and assume the desired responsibilities in real life contexts? Let's invite them to engage with authentic assessment tasks. So let's move from tasks students will never do in real life to tasks students will need to do in real life. Let us move from quality standards, which are only in academics' heads, and outputs that only academics judge, to quality standards that students understand and apply, and where they have opportunities to judge their peers and own performances. In these ways, authentic assessment invites or allows students to demonstrate achievement of learning outcomes in situations as similar as possible to those in which they will need to apply their knowledge and skills and others. We thank you for answering our call to participate in our recognition mechanism 3, authentic assessment in programs outcomes. As our project leader, Dr. Montaño says, let us continue to reflect on the use of authentic assessment to facilitate recognition of full programs at interinstitutional and international levels and stay true to our commitment to improve the quality of higher education programs.